Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thematic Podcast.
What's up?
I'm Craig.
I'm Daniel.
And this is season 3. We're so glad that you're with us.
I was like waiting with bated breath for what you were going to say.
Sometimes
it was really
you
good.
could say more in a pause than you can in words.
It's really good. Selah.
Sweet. Okay, moving on. Not the moment for a pause. Here we go. We are addressing real people's questions, comments, and concerns.
Yep.
And most of this hasn't been pre-thought out or studied or researched.
Oh, none of it has.
None of it has.
On purpose, yeah.
Well, in one sense, none of it has. But in the other sense, the only reason you can be thematic is because you've spent your life.
Yeah.
And so
that's the entire purpose of this podcast. If you're watching it, you didn't know the premise. The premise is Craig and I were sitting around one day. We have so many great theological discussions, and we realized that we could have these because both of us have spent a lot of time passionately pursuing the word. I think both like teenage years, just getting really hungry to know and understand.
Mm-hmm. Mine was a little later than teenage years.
You're amazing. That's amazing. But the point is, we want everyone to be able to have that. We think we all should be having it, and we need to be ready in and out of season. And so when people are like, hey, what does Jesus think about this? Like we have something to speak about from not just our opinion, but from real life lived with Jesus and in his word.
That's right.
That's it.
So here's the thought and the question today, and we'll see what we know about what the word says. Can you talk about believers? This comes from Instagram, by the way. _ honey with a dot in the middle underscore.
Honey?
Well, it's _HON.EYYY _.
I like it. It's a creative way to get that username, you know?
Yeah, honey. Good job. Instagram, she asked this question. I'm guessing it's a she.
They asked the question.
Can you talk about believers who date or marry non-believers? And what does the Bible or God say about this?
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a very real episode before we get into it, because the Bible's actually pretty clear on this. So I bet you know the same thing that I know about it. Let's talk about it from a place of tenderness, no judgment. I think there's two groups of stakeholders, that's business talk. There's two groups of people here, people that are maybe in marriages like that. They already kind of maybe made that decision. Should they unmake it? Let's talk about that a little bit. But then also, if you're, still looking for a relationship, should that be a priority?
Yeah, these are two very different conversations.
Two very different. Yeah.
Are you already married or are you not married? So where do you want to start?
Let's start with the unmarried.
Okay. So you are unmarried. Should you be in a relationship with somebody? If you're a believer, genuinely trying to follow Jesus, is it okay to be in a relationship with somebody that doesn't believe?
No. So there's the answer. If you want to know the heart behind the answer, the heart is beautiful. And I can tell you, as someone who's been married 18 years as of just a few days ago, there is nothing more potent that God has ever designed to shape a man or a woman than marriage. Even more than like having children. Like your marriage will shape you because it's a relationship of choice. And who you sync up with, the Bible calls it yoking. We need to talk about that picture a little bit because it's really beautiful. Because it says, "Do not be unequally yoked."
Well, we have that passage.
Yeah, let's pull it up. But I was just talking about the picture. Like it doesn't mean just don't marry an unbeliever. There could be types of believers you shouldn't be yoked with. That's the power of that visual. It doesn't just say don't marry an unbeliever. It says do not be unequally yoked. And so that's really powerful because there's nothing more important than in your marriage. Like it will shape you. They will pull on you. You will pull on them. It is not all roses. And so the short answer is no, but the reason is beautiful. It's for your good and for theirs. So you need to find someone that is equally yoked, going the same. So a yoke is.
Yeah. What's a yoke?
Yeah. So a yoke is,
well, let me just read the passage.
Read it out.
I mean, well, you really said it. 2 Corinthians 6:14, just, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers.
Yeah. So it says with
Pretty
unbelievers,
simple.
but the
now,
picture
the
is.
context of the passage is talking about a lot of crazy stuff like basically prostitution and all this stuff. But he goes on to talk about like what fellowship or relationship does light have with darkness, and what relationship does Jesus have with these false gods, but the analogy or what like the statement the point that he's trying to make
Yeah.
is like, we are called to belong to God and set apart. And so how could we be in relationship with somebody that's not in this sense? Of course, we're supposed to be in a relationship with people, but because so what does it mean? What does yoke mean?
So I'm going to explain what a yoke is and why I think it's so beautiful of a picture. Okay, so a yoke is when you would hook oxen to a cart to plow. You would have a wooden, it looks like kind of like a, like when you were a kid and you drew those birds in the sky, it kind of looks like that. And then you put those two halves together, and it goes around their necks, and it's meant to press on their shoulders as they walk the same direction.
Yep.
We could probably put a picture up because it's video. So if you're watching video, we'll put a picture up of what it is. But for really experienced farmers or field workers, they really would want two animals of the same strength and the same height. The closer the animals were to being exact match to each other, the smoother the entire plowing process would be. If you had a really strong animal on the right, you would list or lean to the right because that animal would outpull the other one. And then the poor weaker animals getting its neck jacked up and it's getting calloused, and they would have bleeds, and they'd roll up blankets and things to put them inside, all to compensate for having two animals that were unequally yoked. If they were equal, they could both pull at the same pace and strength and height, and it would be a great experience for both animals and for the plowman, who in an analogy of marriage, think of the plowman as Jesus and we are the animals. And I telling you, I mean, Jess is a great match for you. Marie's a great match for me. I mean, I was so attracted to my wife because intellectually she is a genius, and like we would have so much rich conversation, and I could never outpace her, and she felt the same way. And so we're called, Craig, you have a big call in your life. I have a call in mine. That means we as couples are called, and we have a field to plow, and you need to be yoked with someone who has the same passion and energy for Jesus as you do.
Right.
That is why it's so loving. It's not just don't marry an unbeliever. Certainly don't. You have nothing in common. Like you're a regenerated human trying to serve Jesus. You have a person guiding your every decision. They are getting to just live for themselves. Like that will never go well for you.
Right.
So that's what it means.
Yeah. If you're thinking about it just in terms of like, well, that's just a rule, and God loves everybody and I should love that person too. But yeah, if you think about your life as a racetrack and you are running down this thing, if somebody's not going the same direction as you, they're going to pull you off your course.
And it doesn't just create an inconvenience, like you can't get where you're going. I mean, in the analogy, why we shouldn't even try to change the analogy. It's beautiful. The yoke, when one animal is too weak, both the strong and the weak are being hurt. The strong animal's getting abrasions and around its neck, and it's being choked off as it tries to do what it knows its job is. But the weak animal's getting jacked up too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're equally yoked, there's none of that tension, none of that challenge, and the job gets done at half the effort. It's really important. So the answer is no. Don't get married to an unbeliever. And beyond that, try to find someone who's going to pull the same way that you're going to pull, who's going to love Jesus passionately and serve him the way that you're going to do it. It will really go well for you. So there's your answer.
And just practically speaking, you don't have to look too far to know that the divorce rate in this world is very high.
Yeah.
And there is enough stress to go around in every area of life, whether it be finances, with children, with work, with sexual issues, with whatever. Like there's enough problems that even people that are yoked together in a God-ordained healthy relationship are going to face. There's going to be struggles.
Yeah.
And so if you're not on the same page with the most central thing in your life, which is your faith, there's no way that you're going to be on the same page with some of the lesser things in your life.
100%.
But if you have the central, if you're in unity on the essentials, then there can be a little bit of grace,
liberty.
I think it will give you strength to face maybe the disagreements or the tensions in the other areas, because you know that you're yoked together, you're on the same page with the most important things.
For sure. 100%.
And loving God, serving God, faith in God, his kingdom is the most important thing. And by the way, your relationship with God is number one.
It has to be.
Above your spouse or future spouse
100%.
and above your kids, your little baby, that it's like, this is my baby. Guess what? Your relationship with God needs to be number one above your relationship with that baby. Jesus says some pretty harsh words. He says, if you don't love me more than your father and mother, sister and brother, you have no place with me.
Yeah.
What, unless you hate them.
Yeah.
But what's he saying?
It's not the real word, English word hate, but it's a super strong word.
It's not. The point is, like, compared to me, everything else is.
That's it. That's what it means. Yeah.
So
the reverse is true too, Craig. Like, if you're really compatible in the shallow things, good for you. Great. Do not marry someone until you explore the deep issues surrounding your faith. Essentially, your faith in Jesus. Secondarily, like the way you express your faith in Jesus, and make sure your moralities are aligned. Because when you have children or you make a family, every one of those viewpoints will matter to you in 4 to 5 to 6 years or whatever.
Absolutely.
So it might be great on the surface. Do not make a decision that will change your life until you really explore those other areas.
Yeah.
So
before we move on to those that are already married, let me. So we just really talked about, say you're considering even dating somebody, and if you're a believer and they're not, I think we would both agree our general answer is no.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't do that. So if you are a believer and they are a believer, you touched on this for a second. I want to touch on it again before we get to those that are already married. You're a believer and they're a believer. Cool. Okay, so good. We're on the we have the essentials in unity thus far. But still, even within the realm of two believers, you reference this. What are the bigger questions that somebody should be asking that still might be like, hey, other than, oh, I'm really attracted to you and my emotion, I love you, but there's still some bigger questions that, so like, if you're like, I know for a fact the call in my life is to go be a missionary in Mozambique.
Yeah, you should probably disclose that.
But the person that you're dating, they got good looks, they got money, they got a great personality, they're funny, they're brilliant, they're everything, but they're like, no, I don't ever want to be a missionary, ever. They love Jesus with all their heart, but they're like, no, I'm supposed to stay in America and do X, Y, and Z. It's like, dude, there's no sin there. You've got a great call in your life, but if you yoke yourself with that person, one of the two of you is, if it's really a call, is not going to fulfill that call.
For sure. Yeah.
So, like, what do you think about that? Is your opinion that, like,
it's not it's not a sin issue in my mind anymore. That's not a sin. It might be unwise. And walking into it heads up, going, when you have a heart, like when your heart is beating for the mission that God put on your life, like you'll never get that out of you. And so your marriage would be competing with that call in your life. And Paul actually does talk about that in another place, right? Where he said, I wish that you all could be single and serve God only the way that I am. He was, celibate at this point in his life, or, he's like, but once you choose to be married, like, a married man's mind is filled with other things, and that's true. When you choose to get married, you now have the responsibilities of a husband, not just being saved and having the responsibilities of a child of God. And they're different responsibilities. And anywhere they compete, that'll be a challenging, journey for you.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's a sin issue. It is a wisdom thing. Be loving and thoughtful to that other person and disclose as much as you can. But I my hierarchy, like what I'm going to tell my kids is this: salvation first. Like, are they regenerated? Into, like, do they love Jesus and want to live for him? Number 2, calling, because the calling is the gifts and call of God are irrevocable. It's going to beat in their heart forever until they fulfill it. Number 3, morality issues and family issues. Like, do we have the same type of morality? Do we have the same viewpoint on, like, the roles? And discuss those things at first. So the first one would be kind of a sin issue to me, like, do not marry someone unequally yoked with you. And then it's all about wisdom and good, better, best. That's my 2 cents on it.
I like that. And just really practical, I find that there's a few specific issues that tend to be a bigger deal than others. You know? Like,
you want to go through a couple?
Yeah, like, how do you want to spend your money? Are we going to give or not? Are we going to be giving people? to charities in the church? How are we going to spend our money? Did you grow up in a family that's like, yeah, we always buy brand new cars, or no, we always buy the thing that just runs, but it works. Do we spend money on vacations or not on vacations?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. It might seem like, yeah, well, we'll figure that out, like whatever. But sometimes money is a big deal to people.
Yeah.
So I talk about that. What about this?
Children.
Like, well, of course you get married and have kids. At some point we'll have kids, but maybe the person doesn't want to have kids.
Yeah.
Like, and if you don't talk about that, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
I mean, it's huge. So some of those things. We did this thing once. We called it a pre-marriage retreat. We took a bunch of couples that were getting ready to get married. Instead of doing individual counseling with them, we would do it all in a room for a full day and do all these lessons. And Jessica and I got to teach the sex portion, and we had this really fun time where we got to talk about expectations.
Yeah, that's really good.
Frustration is unmet expectations. And so we did this thing where we gave everybody a blank sheet of paper, and then we said, you fill out these, don't put your name on it, and you can drop them in these bowls anonymously, one for girls, one for guys. And we asked them this: how often do you think after you get married, how often are you going to have a sexual encounter?
Yeah.
And things like that. And
the numbers were probably way different.
The numbers are
800.
Yeah, like
per week,
daily,
for the
every
guys,
day, every day.
Yeah.
It's actually funny though. Multiple years in a row, what you'd expect is they were flipped.
Really?
More often the women would write, which we know from scientifically and otherwise that that's not actually how women feel.
Yeah.
Most women. When they get married, and men typically are going to want to do that. Anyway, it just was really crazy how you're expecting something and then what your expectation is, and then the other person might have a differing expectation from you.
And you don't even think to talk about it because you're like, that's just your lens. But yeah, that's beautiful.
So anyway,
let's move on to, we just have a
few minutes.
8 minutes left.
So if you're already married, and
so you get married unsaved, both of you are unsaved and you get married.
Yeah, or let's just say
Yeah.
that somebody didn't know and they were saved and they didn't know.
Great.
So either way, if you're married now, it's done.
It's done.
You're already in that covenant. So you were saved and they weren't, and you didn't know this, or you were both unsaved, and since you've come to know the Lord, of which I know people like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I'm believing for my spouse, but is it okay to say, well, yeah, you're not saved, I should divorce you?
Yeah, I should go find a Christian spouse.
Yeah. The good news is the Bible speaks to this directly.
The Bible actually speaks to it. Yeah, in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul writes to the church, and he says, with pretty much no uncertain terms, remain married.
Yep.
And the good news, or the hope to remaining married, is you have the light of Christ in you now. And that person that you're married to has the best odds they've ever had in finding and knowing Jesus through you. That's the good news. It also kind of gives us a glimpse into how precious marriage is to Jesus. It's a big deal, which is why we're spending the time talking about it. But yeah, and I can't imagine what it might be like to be in a marriage with someone who doesn't share those values. And I'm sure it's pretty painful as if you have to raise kids together and you have competing viewpoints. And my encouragement is find a great community, get you or your children or, those kind of things around other believers, and pray for your spouse, your unbelieving spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pray for them. So stay with them, pray for them, and represent Jesus as well as you can. If it's just nagging and come to church with me, that's probably not going to help.
Yeah.
But if you are just overflowing with a real life change and real love for Jesus and real kindness, and that's the best chance that you're going to have of convincing that person that you're involved in something real.
Yeah. And I don't know if I have much to add. I don't have any experience in that area, but my heart goes out to those folks. But I know that because it's in the written word, that it's an issue that enough people deal with, that there needed to be, one of the apostles of the early church wrote about it.
Yeah.
And so that should give you some hope that you're not alone, that other people go through it. And the Bible says that Jesus is near to the brokenhearted. So if any areas of your heart are disappointed or hurt and conflicted about your marriage, take peace in knowing that Jesus foreknew and sees and is there to help you, and he's near to you.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got on that.
if you are looping back to those that are not yet married, let me just encourage you with this little anecdote. I've heard this before, and so I looked it up. It says a single draft horse can pull a load of 8,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that the strength for that is just crazy. But it says, imagine if you yoked it with another draft horse of equal strength. You would assume that if each can pull 8,000 pounds alone, that they could probably pull 16,000 pounds together. But something crazy happens when you yoke them together. They can pull 24,000 pounds together. It just mathematically doesn't even make sense, because literally 8,000 pounds alone is all you could do. But something happens when there's a unity, and the strength of the two is not just addition, but it's multiplied.
Yeah. Do you know why?
Why?
Distribution. So when you yoke the animals together, all the weight and pressure isn't on their collarbone the same way that it was with 8,000 pounds. So it's not just that their muscles lack the strength to pull.
That makes sense.
It's that the pressure on them is too great, that their muscles are stronger than their pressure can take. And so when you distribute the stress, the animals can pull more.
They're using the full function of the muscles.
Isn't that amazing?
That's beautiful.
The picture. It's not just magic. It's like, it's science, you know, and it's how God designed it. And it's a perfect picture. That's why I love, and I never want to mess that analogy because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, in a marriage, when you're yoked together with that, like my wife is as smart, as strong, as faithful. She's better than me in every way, you know, and I can't imagine doing life without her. And what we can do together because we cover each other and we distribute the load and the pain and the stress of life. It's beautiful the way God designed it. So do your very best to stay in the pocket with what he designed, because he knows so much more than we could possibly know about it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say, I don't know if you have any final thoughts, is especially to those that are looking, I know the temptation can be so strong to just get married because either you want to have sex, or, man, all my friends are, or, you know, you want to take that, you're whatever age, and you want to have that next stage in life and settle down in a house. But please don't rush into this.
Yeah.
The commitment of marriage, unless you're later in life, for most people is going to be the longest, most significant commitment you could ever make.
Come on.
Please make your body, force your flesh to take the time that it should take for your mind and your emotions,
in your heart,
to really consider it. I always like to encourage people to spend a year dating somebody. I know not everybody agrees, and that's okay. And I know people that have dated for a short period of time and they've made it. But I would say the rule of thumb for me is do a relationship with somebody through all 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Because like it or not, and people aren't being dishonest or deceptive, but when you're in a new relationship,
you put your best
you're
foot
just
forward.
putting your best foot forward.
Yeah.
You're trying to be, and sometimes subconsciously you're saying, man, I want to be that person. So you show that person for 2 months, but if that's not really who you are, you can't show that for 2 years. And then those are the sort of things that come out 2 years into marriage that cause all these
time
problems.
And pressure and circumstances can bring out the real person. So allow both for them to get to know the real you, because you can't keep up the veneer of a 4-month, that you could in 4 months. So it's good for them and great for you.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So maybe the foundational point is not a certain prescribed amount of time, but to really ask yourself, am I really being the real me with this person? Whatever the amount of time. And if you're confident of that and you're confident that they are, then okay, move forward. But,
then
just
you at
make
least
sure,
can make a good decision.
Yeah, make sure you're the real you. Don't be pressured into it, forcing it because you want something. And make sure that the most essential things you're on the same page with. And no matter what, if you're a person that's in that marriage right now, God is not forsaking you. He's with you.
He's with you.
And there's a path wherever we find ourselves in life. In God, there's always a path forward that he'll lead us on if we'll give our life over to him. So
I hope that
helps
answered
you.
the question.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, and keep your questions coming. You can send us more questions on Instagram or TikTok or on thethematicpodcast.com. And we thank you for them. And would you please just do us a favor and leave a review of this and share this with a friend? That's the best way to get the podcast out to more people. So God bless you. We'll see you next time.
See ya.